Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to watch the exciting recap of the race weekend in Melbourne. Let's go! Max Verstappen managed to capture pole position for the Australian Grand Prix early Saturday morning. The Dutchman stayed ahead of George Russell and Lewis Hamilton, allowing him to start Sunday's third race of 2023 from P1. Prior to qualifying, Verstappen, VT1 and VT3, and Fernando Alonso, VT2, had won the practice sessions in Melbourne. Around qualifying, there was much uncertainty about the weather. Some weather reports said the chance of rain was minimal, while the FIA itself said there was a 90% chance of rain, and the chance was greatest during Q3. With this knowledge, the drivers began qualifying in Melbourne on Saturday. On Sunday, during the race, we faced the most red flags in Formula One history. The race started messily, and Verstappen was overtaken by George Russell and Lewis Hamilton. Despite Mercedes' successful overtaking, Max eventually managed to emerge victorious from the race. Max Verstappen has won his maiden F1 Australian Grand Prix following a chaotic race at Melbourne's Albert Park. The reigning champion was the heavy favorite coming into the race, but the Dutchman was overtaken by Mercedes duo George Russell and Lewis Hamilton on the opening lap. It was notable that George Russell overtook Verstappen on the worst side of the track. Charles Leclerc's gravel beaching caused an early safety car before Alex Albon's crash 7 laps later resulted in the race being red flagged. Once the racing resumed, Verstappen asserted his dominance and built a commanding lead. However, a late second red flag was shown after Kevin Magnussen lost his rear tire, leaving 2 dramatic laps to be completed. Chaos and collisions ensued when the race restarted, headlined by a heavy crash between Alpine teammates Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon. This led to a third red flag being shown, with the race ultimately concluding behind a safety car. It was only a matter of time before Verstappen picked up his first win at the Australian Grand Prix. He finished third in 2019, witnessed the race to be cancelled twice due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and suffered a car breakdown last year. This time, though, he got his win, and it was richly deserved. Verstappen dropped back 2 places on the first lap, but kept a cool head, eventually overtaking Hamilton for the lead after the first red flag. From that point on, he put his head down in typical fashion, establishing a commanding lead that couldn't be eclipsed, even after 2 late dramatic red flags. After battling for a podium position for the majority of the race, Sainz's experience at Albert Park came to a frustrating end. The Ferrari driver clipped Alonso during the second red flag restart, resulting in the race stewards handing him a 5-second time penalty. The decision was controversial because the FIA re-established the race order according to how it was set prior to the restart, meaning Alonso had not lost his place, and the lap was effectively discounted. "No, it's unacceptable. They need to wait until the race is finished and then discuss it with me," Sainz said on the team radio. As a result of the penalty, he dropped to P12, with the drivers crossing the finish line in a tight pack. The Spaniard declined to comment on the issue when interviewed post-race by Sky Sports F1. Carlos Sainz is furious with the FIA after handing out a time penalty, giving him 0 points to take home from Australia. The Ferrari driver has to hold back on camera. "I am not going to comment on this yet until I have been to the FIA, but this is the biggest disgrace to the sport I have seen in many years," he told Viaplay. The lap in which Sainz received a penalty was reversed after a red flag
and does not exist in the final results of the F1 race in Australia. The penalty, however, does. "I better not say more," Carlos said. "Whether there will be a formal protest, we will see soon." It may not have panned out the way he expected, but Piastri will surely not be complaining about securing points in his first F1 race in Australia. The Melbourne-born product started in P16, but drove maturely to finish P8 and score his maiden championship points. Red Bull's Sergio Perez was voted as the F1 driver of the day after his impressive performance at Albert Park. The Mexican surged up from a pit lane start to finish P5, and Sergio Perez also set the fastest lap time during the Australian GP.